with the waves of the Sankirtan. And this gathering of more than 500 devotees from every continent was a powerful testimony to the good health of the growing Krishna consciousness movement. Rameshwar Swami returned with the latest figure of Srila Prabhupada's book production. In the English language alone, Srila Prabhupada had published 43,450,000 pieces of literature. Good joy. And the total production of Prabhupada's books in 23 languages, including Russian, was 55,314,000, more than 90% of which had already been distributed. Rameshwar also presented Srila Prabhupada with a new book just off the press, the 9th canto, part 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Radha Vallabha reported that the next printing of Bhagavad Gita would be so large that the paper required to print it would have to be carried on 76 train cars. Prabhupada and the devotees laughed at the astounding figures. Prabhupada thanked the devotees for their hard work. This is a blessing of my Guru Maharaj, he said. He wanted it, and because we are trying to do this, he is giving us all blessings. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 18. Did he vows to kill King Indra? And there's quite a few texts. So I'm going to read from 54, but I think we have to go up till 62 has a purport, so we'll do that one together. Samvatsaram pumsavanam vatrametad aviprutam darayasyasi chetubhyam shakraha bhavita sutta. Kashyapa Muni continued, if you perform the ceremony called Pumsavana, adhering to the vow with faith for at least 1 year, you will give birth to a son destined to kill Indra. But if there is any discrepancy in the discharge of this vow, the son will be a friend to Indra. Ajamicha Bhupetyata Diti Rajan Mahamana Kashyapad Garbanadata Vratram Chanjo Tadarasa. O King Parikshit, Diti, the wife of Kashyapa, agreed to undergo the purificatory process known as Pumsavana. Yes, she said, I shall do everything according to your instruction. With great jubilation, she became pregnant, having taken semen from Kashyapa, and faithfully began discharging the vow. Patraswashur abhiprayam indra agyayamanada shushushane nashramashtam ditim pariyacharat kavi. O king, who are respectful to everyone, Indra understood Diti's purpose, and thus he contrived to fulfill his own interests. Following the logic that self-preservation is the first law of nature, he wanted to break Diti's promise. Thus he engaged himself in the service of Diti, his aunt, who was residing in an ashram. Nityam vanat sumana sha paramula samitkushan patrankura mridopashcha karekara upaharat. Indra served his aunt daily by bringing flowers, fruits, roots, and wood for yagis from the forest. He also brought kusha grass, leaves, sprouts, earth, and water exactly at the proper time. Evam tasya vratashtaya vrata chitram hariya nipa trebsu paryacharaj chimo mrigaheva mrigakritai. King Parikshit, as the hunter of a deer becomes like a deer by covering his body with deerskin and serving the deer, so Indra, although at heart the enemy of the sons of Diti, became outwardly friendly and served Diti in a faithful way. Indra's purpose was to cheat Diti as soon as he could find some fault in the way she discharged the vows of the ritualistic ceremony. However, he wanted to be undetected, and therefore he served her very carefully. Nadyagachadvata chitram tatrota mahipate chintam tivram gata shakra kename shakchivam tviha. who mastered the entire world. When Indra could find no faults, he thought, how will there be good fortune for me? Thus he was full of deep anxiety. Ekada satu sanjayam uchista vratakarshita aprishta varya totangri sushwapa vidimohita. Having grown weak and thin because of strictly following the principles of the vow, Diti once unfortunately neglected to wash her mouth, hands, and feet after eating, and went to sleep during the evening twilight. Okay, so we will do text 61 together. Labdvatat antaram shakro. Labdvatat antaram shakro. Nidra pahrita chetasa. Nidra pahrita chetasa. Diti pravista uttaram. Diti pravista uttaram. Yogesho yogamayaya. Yogesho yogamayaya. Labdatarantaram shakro. Nidraparita chetasa. Dite pravista uttaram. Yogesho yogamayaya. Labdatarantaram shakro. Nidraparita chetasa. Dite pravista uttaram. Yogesho yogamayaya. Labdva tarantaram shakro. Nidrapahrita chetasa. Dite pravishta udaram. Yogesho yogamaya. Labdva tarantaram shakro. Nidrapahrita chetasa. Dite pravishta udaram. Yogesho. Labdva, finding. Tad antaram, after that. Shakraha, Indra. Nidra, by sleep. Aparita chetasaha, unconscious. Dite, of Diti. Pravishtaha, entered. Udaram, the womb. Yoga Isha, the master of yoga. Yoga, of yogic perfections. Maya, by the power. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami So Prabhupada Ki. Finding this fault, Indra, who has all the mystic powers, the yoga siddhis such as Anima and Lagima, entered Diti's womb while she was unconscious, being fast asleep. Purport. A perfectly successful yogi is expert in 8 kinds of perfection. By one of them, called Anima Siddhi, he can become smaller than an atom, and in that state he can enter anywhere. With this yogic power, Indra entered the womb of Diti while she was pregnant. Om Jnanatamrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutare Sayanupagaram Daranti Swaparantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhinevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm humbly seeking the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas that I'm able to speak primarily for my own purification and to please Srila Prabhupada. So here we see the pastime is very much progressing. We're reaching actually the end of the 6th canto. We're preparing the way for Prahlad Maharaj to actually appear. It is very exciting. Diti has agreed to perform this vow as given by her husband, which will enable her, if she follows it absolutely perfectly, to get a son who will kill Indra. But the crux of the matter is that it's very difficult to follow, and therefore if she does not follow it perfectly, she'll have a son who's a friend to Indra. But also if she does follow it perfectly, then she'll become a pure Vaishnava. And therefore have no longer any desire to kill Indra. But Indra, he's very scared. We read a couple of verses earlier that he's motivated by the nature's law of self-preservation. Following the logic that self-preservation is the first law of nature, he wanted to break Diti's promise. Now, it should be noted that Indra is also a son of Kashyapa. Therefore, here he's referring to Diti as his aunt. So I'm not quite sure how the relation works, but it's a family member. Yet because of this law of self-preservation, he's willing to enter into the womb of his aunt and destroy her embryo. It's fairly horrific, but this is the strength of self-preservation, this idea that at all costs, like me or my extended self, meaning sort of my family or nation or where I place my identity, I will sacrifice anything just to maintain that. So we see Indra goes to such endeavors and such means to try and fulfill this self-preservation. He's looking for the slightest discrepancy in the activities of Diti, the slightest discrepancy, because that will give him an excuse to think, she's broken the vow, therefore I can perform the events I want to perform. It's very interesting. The analogy is given that he's like a deer. A deer becomes like a deer. The hunter of a deer becomes like a deer simply to kill the deer. But it's interesting, there's an analogy given in the Nectar Devotion that the devotee is like a married woman who has, some sort of love affair with someone outside of her marriage. She performs her duties to her husband even more expertly than one who's married, because she wants to raise no suspicion whatsoever. So similarly, the devotee, they perform their material activities very, very diligently, but simply to not raise suspicion. So eventually we see that Indra catches that Diti has made the slightest mistake. She has grown very weak, and therefore she once forgets to wash her mouth, hands, and feet after eating, and she went to sleep during the evening twilight. This evening twilight is a very inauspicious time. Notably, that's when Diti first requested to get some children from Kashyapa Muni, which resulted in this whole fiasco, we could say. So then Indra, who has all the mystic powers, he enters Diti's womb while she was unconscious, being fast asleep. So ultimately, we see here the materialist, because Indra is playing the role. He's a very exalted personality, but at least for our own education, he's playing the role of a materialist, someone who's interested primarily in their own self-preservation, and therefore will go to any endeavor to fulfill that preservation. And so we see how much endeavor he's going to. He's having to serve his enemy so nicely. Someone is generally plotting to kill him, but he is having to serve her so nicely and looking for the slightest discrepancy. And then when he does find the discrepancy, then he has to utilize great yogic mystic powers to enter into our womb. As we see, there's lots and lots of difficulty. Now I was thinking about this, how much a materialistic life, simply to sort of survive, can be such a source of difficulty. But spiritual life is the opposite. We see here that Indra is trying in so many different ways to find a reason to enter into Diti's womb. Whereas the mercy of Mahaprabhu is the opposite. It's finding so many ways to distribute itself to us, you know. It's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Shiprim Bhavati Dharma, Shipra Shudadarish Vishwalan Vishwan Aplayavanchapi Nityageva Sudabhati Sri Chaitanya Prabhum Bhajet, that the mercy of the nectar of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya is like a great river which is inundating the entire universe. And just as a river always flows downstream, then this mercy is most applicable to those who are at the most fallen. It's a very nice verse Kaviraj Goswami is writing. And so we have to understand that there's one analogy I heard I like very much, that the most dangerous thing when we're building some house, etc., is water damage. You know, if there's some water somewhere, then this will seep in and gradually destroy the entire building. You know, so many regulations and rules now when we make buildings. But similarly, the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it is like this water. And it will find the slightest crack. It already has found the crack, and it is seeping in, and it is destroying people's materialistic lives. And it's insurmountable. And we have to have this vision that the mercy of Lord Chaitanya is coming directly at us. Yeah, so we may not even see, just as if there's water damage in a building, we may not even see for many, many years how this damage is affecting the building. And similarly, the mercy of Lord Chaitanya is imperceptible, but it's seeping in, and and its effect will eventually be noticed. So I was thinking about the comparison between the materialist as personified by Indra in this pastime, and the devotee, and how the devotee is getting so much more access to the mercy of the Lord. And we see this in the example of Maharaj Prataparudra. He's a great king of Orissa, but he hears from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about the glories of Lord Chaitanya, and he has faith in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Bhattacharya says that this personality is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and therefore from then on Maharaj Prataparudra has an intense desire to meet Lord Chaitanya. But when he hears this, then when he first hears about Lord Chaitanya has already gone on his tour of South India, which I've heard different numbers. Prabhupada says it's 6 years Mahaprabhu is touring South India for. Because I don't know how many. I've heard 2 years as well, but anyway, he's away for a long time. But still, Maharaj Prataparudra is intensely hankering for this association. Therefore, when Mahaprabhu comes back, he Maharaj Prataparuja petitions Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya again, please arrange some darshan. But when Sarvabhauma approaches Mahaprabhu, the Mahaprabhu he's aghast at the idea. He's like, well, I'm a sannyasi. I am taking this role, and for a sannyasi to associate with worldly people it does neither of them any good, because he has to sort of he's engaged in the Varnashram Institute, so he has to exemplify the behavior of one in the renounced order of life. And therefore he says, no, there's no way I'll meet Maharaj Prataparuja. But this sort of rejection doesn't deter Maharaj Prataparuja. No, he's very, very desperate. So he writes letters to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saying, please, just petition the Lord. If I do not get this darshan, then I will renounce my entire kingdom and become a mendicant. And Sarvabhauma is like, what? Okay, he gets all the devotees together. Swarup Damodar, Nityananda Prabhu, all the devotees in Jagannath Puri. And they sort of have a meeting, think what we're going to do. And Nityananda Prabhu says, we'll simply glorify Maharaj Prataparuja in front of Lord Chaitanya, then his heart will become softened. As they have this plan, I think very much, because then they've met together, they come up with this plan, and then they all run towards Lord Chaitanya. And it's described, they get to him, and then no one says anything, because they all want to start glorifying him, but they feel very awkward, because they know that to hear about this upsets Mahaprabhu. So they're just sort of sitting in silence, They come up to Mahaprabhu, and then they stay in silence, and he's like, what? Do you have something to say? Please speak. And eventually Lord Nityananda says, yeah, well, it's like there's Maharaj Prataparuja, he's desperate for your darshan. He's very, very desperate, and he will renounce his kingdom. And Mahaprabhu is very, very merciful. So even at this point, he agrees that he will see him, but he's not happy about it. He's got this sort of inner resentment. He's feeling he's betraying or not living in accordance with his ashram. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu, he suggests, well, you could, if you give him an old piece of your cloth, then he can worship this as you, and this will be the same. There's a famous verse from, I think it's from the Bhagavatam, Aradhanam Sarveshu Vishnu Aradhanam Param Vishnu, of all Tadiyanam Samarchanam, that higher than the worship of the demigods is worship of Lord Vishnu, and higher than worship of Lord Vishnu is worship of the Tadiyanam, those things in relation to the Lord. So in this way, they thought they could pacify Maharaj Prataparuja by giving him an outward cloth of Mahaprabhu. But he takes this, he's very, very happy, but at the same time, he's still very much hankering for this darshan. So therefore, he then petitions Ramananda Roy, because Ramananda Roy has a very, very intimate relationship with Lord Chaitanya. He's one of the 2.5 most intimate associates of the Lord. And so Ramananda Roy, he speaks to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu said, no, I can't. I'm a sannyasi. I cannot meet the king. Ramananda Roy, he's having none of this external sort of show of being a sannyasi. He says, come off it. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just meet the king. And Mahaprabhu is still denied. But he says, okay, I'll meet his son. Because in the Vedic, we're reading just a couple of days ago, actually, in this passage in Bhagavatam, the son is seen as non-different from the father. Actually, here it is. The child in the womb is a part of the husband's body. And this is very nice. The son becomes an intimate associate of the Lord because he looks like Krishna. Then Mahaprabhu is very pleased to see him. And Maharaj Prataparuja, again, he's very, very pleased with this, but he's not completely satisfied. He's thinking, okay, at Rathayatra, then I'm going to get darshan, And so we see some qualities here of the devotee, that the devotee is, they're greedy. this describes one of the how to get the mercy of the Lord. Lord Nityananda says that the qualification is greed, isn't it? Lolium. Intense greed is necessary. And we should be like this as well with the association of senior Vaishnavas, exalted devotees. Yeah, I've heard it mentioned. I'm thinking myself, it's like we're in this unique position now where we have the opportunity to associate with many devotees who directly associated with Srila Prabhupada, who knew Prabhupada, who served Prabhupada. But this opportunity will not be there for very long. There'll come a day when there's the last Prabhupada disciple leaves our body. It's quite scary to think, actually. Therefore, we need to be very much greedy for this association. So inwardly, we see Lord Chaitanya. He's very pleased with Maharaj Prataparudra. He's very pleased that his intense desire to have darshan of him. He's also very pleased at how humble Maharaj Prataparudra is, and he's simply trying to serve the devotees of the Lord. Because this is actually the secret to get association with the Lord, is you please his devotees. So then at Rath Yatra, Lord Chaitanya, he's dancing in ecstasy. With all these kirtan parties described, as he was stepping from side to side, the entire earth and all the mountains and the rivers, they were tilting as well in accordance with his dancing. And he begins reciting these ecstatic verses in the mood of Srimati Radharani, pulling Lord Krishna back to Vrindavan. He's saying like, because previously Krishna has, given instructions through Uddhava that, you can just meditate upon me. This is good enough. I'm all pervading, etc. As he's saying, I desire. Lord Chaitanya is saying this prayer in the mood of Srimati Radharani. He's saying, I desire to withdraw my mind from you and engage it in materialistic activities, but I'm simply unable to do so. Therefore, your instructions for me to meditate upon you are simply ludicrous. You are killing me. She says like this. I'm not a worthy person to receive such instructions. So Lord Chaitanya, he's reciting all these verses, and very few devotees actually understand what's going on. Swarup Damodar is the only one who really properly understands. And Maharaj Prataparudra, he can also understand what's going on. And therefore Lord Chaitanya, he's very merciful. He falls down in ecstasy right in front of him. Maharaj Prataparudra gets to pick him up and things. And Lord Chaitanya, he still has this show of being, disgusted that he's associated with the king, but inwardly he's very, very pleased. And then it so happens that the Rath Yatra cart stops, and the devotees they take rest and prasadam. And Maharaj Prataparudra, he in the dress of a Vaishnava. In the dress of a Vaishnava, he approaches the Lord who's resting, and he starts to massage his legs whilst reciting verses from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. I don't know what verse he recites in particular. A famous verse from the Gopi Gita. Amritam taptajivanam kalvidandam kalmasaptanam savana mangalam shuri mangalam bhuri rajana. Yeah. He starts reciting this famous verse saying that my dear Lord, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul for all those who are aggrieved by material sufferings. They're propagated by great personalities, and they free one from all sinful reactions. They are all auspicious to anyone who hears them, and they're broadcast throughout the world. And those who are engaged in propagating or broadcasting the message of Godhead, they're the most munificent welfare workers, like this. And then Mahaprabhu, he hears this, and he's sort of playing the show. He doesn't know who this personality is, because Maharaj Pratap, he's dressed as a simple Vaishnava. He's not dressed as a king. And so he gets up and he embraces him and he's saying, Burida, Burida, you are the most munificent. You are the most munificent. And he's embracing him. And it's quite incredible. So this is where we see that this is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, is that his mercy is overflowing and it's coming directly towards it, and is actually unavoidable, particularly if we are Burida, engaged in propagating the message of Godhead, of love of Godhead. I think Maharaj Pratap, he exemplifies that we must be very greedy to get the association of the Lord, and we must also be very, very humble. He was in a very, very high class position, but he engaged himself as a sweeper in front of the Rath Yatra cart. He was sweeping the streets. And similarly, there was another time he was trying to take darshan of Lord Chaitanya when he was dancing, and I think Srivas Thakur was standing in the way. And so one of the king's servants or someone tries to, taps Srivas Thakur on the shoulder and say, please move out the way so the king can see. It's very funny. Srivas Thakur, he just looks at this personality, and because he's in the middle of taking darshan of Lord Chaitanya, he's not going to move for anyone. He looks at this small personality who's trying to get him to move so he can see the king. And he just turns around and he slaps him. And when Maharaj Pratap sees what's happening, sees that his servant is trying to move Srivas Thakur out of the way, he's aghast, because he sees how exalted these devotees are. And his servant comes back to him and he says, see how fortunate you were. You got the lotus hand of Srivas on your cheek. And so he's very, very humble, and he glorifies the devotees and he serves the devotees. And he pleases the devotees, and therefore he gets the mercy of the Lord. Mahaprabhu, he glorifies them as Burida. So I just found there's a couple of purports I highlighted a little while ago that sort of exemplified the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. This one is from the Madhya Lila, chapter 7, verse 152. The verse goes, one who hears these pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great faith will surely very soon attain the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is at the end of chapter 7, the Lord's tours around South India. And so the purpose is like this. When a person actually revives his consciousness with thoughts of Krishna by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he revives his spiritual life and becomes addicted to the service of the Lord. It's very nice use of the word addicted. It is an addiction. It's it can never be satisfied. Prabhupada said the result of chanting is chanting. There's more chanting, that we can never be satiated. But it's actually this intense greed to engage in the service of the Lord, to increase our service, to do better service. This Prabhupada describes as samadhi, always thinking how we can do, how to better, spread this movement, etc. Then this is actually a form of samadhi. So he revives his spiritual life and becomes addicted to the service of the Lord. Only then he can act as an acharya. In other words, everyone should engage in preaching, following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, one will be very much appreciated by Lord Krishna and will quickly be recognized by him. So we see in the pastime of Diti and Lord Indra, as we're reading just now, how much endeavor Indra has to go to, both Diti and Indra have to go to realize their materialistic ends. One of them wants a son to kill Indra, and the other one wants to protect their own life. And it's very, very troublesome, Whereas if one engages in preaching activities, then they're very quickly noticed by by Lord Krishna, as it's saying here. Krishna will quickly recognize him. He's appreciated by Lord Krishna and will quickly be recognized by him. Actually, a devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must engage in preaching in order to increase the followers of the Lord. By thus preaching actual Vedic knowledge all over the world, one will benefit all mankind. So this is what's exemplified by that verse, Tavagatamritam Tapta Jivanam, that those who spread the message of Godhead are certainly the most munificent welfare workers. And if Lord Chaitanya, he sees that people are engaged in some or other spreading this message, then he notices them, and his mercy is insurmountable. You know, we cannot actually avoid it. We get engaged in service. You know, that's why I like service being an addiction. We get addicted to the service of the Lord. Because it's like we go in Harinam, or we try in so many different ways to engage some people in the service of the Lord. You know, so please just give some small donation for the eco farm. You know, give some donation, and they think it's very harmless. You know, but really, what we're doing, it's like a gateway drug. You give someone a little bit of service, and then they can't work out why it makes them feel so. Why does it feel so nice to begin to chant Hare Krishna, to even clap? You know. If they're clapping when they see the devotees on Harinam, this is service, you know, they chant, etc. And so it's like a gateway drug. They get a little taste of service, and then, okay, it may not be this lifetime, but still the taste is there. And therefore they cannot help but always be anxious. And therefore this is why we need to, because of course that the highest service is engaging others in, you know, Sankirtan means engaging others in the service of the Lord. Primarily, the highest service is chanting his holy name. So engaging others in the chanting of the Lord, the names of the Lord, is is the Yuga Dharma, it's Harinam Sankirtan. Congregational chanting, we cannot chant on our own. Therefore, we have to engage others in Sankirtan, and this is what draws the mercy of Mahaprabhu, and this mercy is completely overwhelming. You know, there's nothing we can do about it. It's like this water which is seeped into a building. You know, the building is just okay. It may look okay on the outside. You know, it may look strong and sturdy, but if the water is in there, and it is deeply, it's slowly disintegrating all the structure. You know. So Mahaprabhu's mercy comes and it's slowly disintegrating our entire material life. It's said, Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shiksharta Mekam Purusham Purana, Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dari, Kripambudi Amta Maham Prapaji. Lord Chaitanya, who is directly Krishna himself, has descended into this world to propagate knowledge of him, of Krishna, of detachment from everything which does not foster Krishna consciousness, Vairagya, and Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to him. And therefore we should sincerely be engaged in trying to be Burida, the most munificent welfare workers, because as we see from the example of Maharaj Prataparudra, then he's getting directly embraced by Lord Chaitanya. He's embracing him, saying Burida, Burida. So I just wonder if there's any comments or questions or corrections so far. Cool. Yeah, so yeah, Aditi, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Aditi is the mother of the demigods. Yeah, we see how such relationship doesn't impede his desire to enter into our womb using yogic powers and chop our embryo into 7 7 pieces, and then into 7 more. I think 49. Was it 40? Because 7 and then 7 again. That's 49, I think. Yeah.
So in this pastime, Indra and Diti are both determined, motivated. So out of the two, which is considered the most elevated of the two?
They're both materially motivated, so neither are. I don't think neither are particularly elevated, but you see that just because the process of Krishna consciousness is there, that this deity's been engaged in this vow, which is making her into a Vaishnava, then both of them become purified. We see, Indra, he sees that when he cuts the embryo into these 49 pieces, and then he sees that these maruts are actually very friendly to him, and he doesn't kill them. And similarly, Diti, she also becomes purified. But yeah, I mean, if someone is materialistically motivated, then it's sort of a little bit like the dry and wet stool. Like someone might be slightly more pious, etc., but it's still stool, even if it is very dry. What would be your thoughts on it?
Well, it's interesting that in the previous pastime, although Indra succeeded with the service considered more elevated, eventually with the destination was of Diti, where she is still alive, and the destination Indra is still here in the eternal world.
It's the same Indra. Is it?
Yeah,
No, it's one man, one tar or something. I guess, Diti, Prahlad Maharaj is going to take, all this pastime is preparing the way for Prahlad Maharaj to take birth. He's, and he's exemplifying, he's one of the topmost devotees. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure. But, you see, Diti and Indra are both materially motivated, but who's more exalted? Still a couple of minutes. I'll read out one of the other purports. This is one of the purports regarding the pastime Maharaj Prataparudra. A student of Krishna consciousness must revive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, then his devotional service will quickly succeed. This was the case with King Prataparudra. One has to be noticed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and a little service with sincere efforts will convince the Lord that one is a proper candidate for returning home back to Godhead. At first, Maharaj Prataparudra did not have a chance to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but when the Lord saw that the king was serving Lord Jagannath as a menial sweeper, the Lord's mercy upon the king became a solid fact. When Maharaj Prataparudra, in the dress of a Vaishnava, was serving the Lord did not even inquire who he was. Rather, he had compassion upon him and embraced him. So this is stated in the Nectar of Devotion that the process of Krishna consciousness is so pure and so potent that when one begins it, they are forcibly dragged to success. And also, this is the case, so we may feel that we're getting dragged in the opposite direction, but the mercy of Lord Chaitanya is, it's like an infection. It has to take root. And similarly, when the highest way to achieve this mercy is to engage in some sort of burida, in some sort of highest welfare work, which is preaching, being humble, etc. Then Lord Chaitanya's mercy is there, and we have no option but to surrender to it. So I'll stop here unless there's any other comments or questions. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.